This event is sponsored by Career Services as well as Phi Alpha Delta. So thank you so much for those people with helping to organize the event. And thank you very much to Pedram Tabibi. He got his BA in politics at NYU and graduated with a JD from Cardozo, and he concentrated in intellectual property. He currently is an attorney at Meltzer, Lippi, Goldstein, and Brightstone in the litigation, corporate, internet law, technology, and e-commerce, and real estate groups. He also is a blog writer for Long Island Business News and an adjunct professor of social media and the law at St. John's University. He's also recognized as a Long Island 30 Under 30 Young Professionals honoree by the Huntington Chamber of Commerce for 2012. And without further ado, I'd like to welcome Pedram.
Thank you. Thank you very much, and thank you to everybody for coming. It's a pleasure to be here, and I'm not the only Meltzer Lippi person here, by the way. My colleague Paul Rubel is an adjunct here, I believe, right now, and I'm very familiar with Professor Izor over here, who does a lot of great things in some of the new technologies. So you have a very technologically advanced school. Kristen and her cohorts are also a testament. I was telling her before that I was going through your website and looking at some of the things that you have, and you have a Pinterest page, which is amazing to me. And it's and those little things some people might not notice, but it really goes to show that Touro is committed to embracing technology like this, and it's very important. Just by way of background and what I do and why it's something important to me. As Kristen said, I'm an attorney at Meltzer Lippi. I do primarily litigation and corporate. I graduated in 2009, that long ago, many ages ago, from Cardozo. And I have an interest in social media and the law, and so that's what I'm doing now at St. John's, a course on social media and the law, because it is that important. And that kind of flows in with what we're talking about today and why social media is important for you, and how greatly important it is for businesses, for companies, for just a whole variety of things. So, not only should you take away, from today being more savvy and realizing that you can do a lot for your career, and not only to find a job, but to get clients, as well, down the line, and really put yourself in a really great professional light on whether you do it on Facebook, LinkedIn, Twitter, Instagram, I guess Pinterest now even, as your school is so inclined to do. So it's important. Social media is very important for business, again, for a whole variety of things. People use it as their form of communication now, to the point that you have First Amendment issues like whether or not a Facebook like is entitled to a First Amendment protection. The answer is yes. The Fourth Circuit said so. It's very important, and I'm happy, by the way, to talk to people later if you want to know about some of those things as well. But the focus today is using social media for career opportunities. So why are we talking about social media? These are just some slides to give you some background. But why social media? When I was doing this and when I was looking for work, I didn't have the level that of resources that are existing now on social media. And if I wanted to look for jobs, I had the job website, but you had things like Career Builder and Monster, which are now, like black holes of information. We're past that now. And so here's just some information that I found interesting. According to a survey that they did, social media recruitment is essential now for HR practice. 94% of companies use it to find talent in 2013. It's very important. So when I talk to people, because even during this time of the year, I have a lot of people from my own alma mater reach out to me because they're looking for jobs or opportunities, internships, etc. And when they call me, the first thing I do is, and the first thing, don't kid yourself, employers will do, is they're going to Google you, or it's one of the first things that they're going to do. So I go to their LinkedIn page, for example, because at least some of them have LinkedIn pages. And all I see is a bare bones thing about, this is where they go, and these are the places, without even a description of what they did there. And so what I say to them is, it's great that you have that, but that's going to be the first impression that someone is going to have of you, an employer, and it's going to be of, they knew where you worked, but they don't know anything else about you. So, and first impressions matter. And so, just, from that purpose alone, it is very important. People will Google you, so, you should be in control of what they find and use it as a way You read so much about the terrible things that people do online on social media and the bad light that they put them in, but use it as a way to put yourself in a good light and really impress somebody when they're out there looking for you. So, just again, some of the numbers. LinkedIn is used by 94% of recruiters. 65% of them use Facebook. 55% use Twitter. Twitter is really underrated for some of this, stuff. And 18% use Google Plus and YouTube. People use YouTube because, for example, depending on the kind of work that you're doing, some of it might be projects. And so there's an opportunity to use these other kinds of platforms and not just LinkedIn. Don't limit yourself just to LinkedIn. And I've had people who come up to me after some of these, times that I speak, and they say, I found a job through Twitter. I tweeted out that I needed a legal position, and I happened to be friends with a judge, and the judge reached out to me afterwards because we were following each other on Twitter. So don't think that, and I'm proof positive of this too. But so again, it says nearly 3 out of 4 hiring managers and recruiters check someone's social media profile. And more than 3 out of 4 employers have successfully hired someone through social media, 92% out of LinkedIn, and then Facebook and Twitter to a lesser extent. So the question is, again, what type of social media presence do you have on there, on these platforms, to increase your chances of finding something? And you should really look at it as a great opportunity. These are, again, just some of the, different ways that, recruiters look at social media information. And again, it can be in a good and bad way. Certainly, I just wanted to put that out there. You're law students, but hopefully you realize that you should be careful also what you put out there. At the same time, I know many people who are law students and attorneys who put out less than flattering stuff even to this day. And I would just say this stuff is going to follow you around. I've read too many cases to see that it doesn't, and I've seen the gambit of things. I just read about a case where a murder conviction was overturned because somebody tweeted out something. So don't think that if that can't happen, people can't find things about you. So just again, these are some numbers, and I'm happy to share this afterwards. But the key is, again, just be careful what you put out there too. But I've heard of some schools actually telling people don't have profiles on some of these accounts as a result, and that's the wrong information to give. You should definitely be on here and use it to your advantage. So let's talk about some of the profiles. And obviously, everyone's familiar with LinkedIn. How many people in here have a LinkedIn profile? All right, some of you do, and some of you don't. So the people who don't, I'm encouraged to run out into the audience right now and make one for you because it's really important. I really think that everybody, especially law students, in our current times, the way that businesses use LinkedIn, and the way companies do, the way individuals do, and they use social media in general, and the fact that a lot of companies post their jobs and they look for people, they research people on LinkedIn. Everybody in here should have a LinkedIn account without question, and I'm happy to talk to anyone afterwards, and tell them more why I think so. So you have 3 million company pages on LinkedIn, over 275 million people are on LinkedIn, and it's become the place of record for businesses. It's not Career Builder, Monster, all that jazz anymore. This is the place the one website that companies look to, for finding talent more than any other now. It really is the website and platform of record for business. So, if everybody else is on there, that's not always a reason that you should be, but in this case, I think you should. And let's talk about some of the basics of LinkedIn and what you should have. So I thought it was brilliant that you were doing something with headshots, and whoever didn't do it today should absolutely come next time if you reschedule it and get a headshot. It makes a difference. And so there's studies that show that, first of all, the fact that you have a photo on there makes you 7 times more likely to be viewed on LinkedIn than if you don't. So you should absolutely have a picture. And then the question becomes, do you want to have a picture where you're cropped out at somebody at a party, so you have like half of your shoulder in there, or do you want a professional picture? And those kinds of things make a difference. You're laughing because it's probably one of your pictures. So those kinds of things, it makes a difference. It really does make a difference. And first impressions, can be really important, and especially in you don't have a lot of time to look at. Recruiters might not have a lot of time to look at these things. So have a profile photo. Absolutely take advantage, because very few schools have something like that in place where you can have a professional photo and put that up there, because you're just more likely to be interacted with. Your headline matters. So how many people know what the headline is on your LinkedIn profile? Okay, 1. So the headline is, you realize, is very important actually for your LinkedIn profile. Let's see if I can get mine. So that's the thing that's in yellow there is the headline on your LinkedIn profile. And that is very important because in addition to your name and your photo, that's one of the first things that comes up when someone's doing a search for you on LinkedIn. So people make the mistake if you're working at a law firm. So some of this is information not only for now, but when you're practicing attorneys as well. If your headline says, I'm an associate at XYZ firm, that's really not good because nobody is searching for an associate at XYZ firm. They're looking for a bankruptcy attorney. They're looking for a contract attorney, matrimonial attorney, tax attorney. They're not looking for the partner at the Smith law firm. So that's the headline is very crucial to how you come up in search results. So even as a law student, you can take advantage of that and maybe say you're interested in these types of fields. And think of this like SEO, search engine optimization. A lot of this is, like that. If you're going to have a company on, that's going to operate, you want a Google search to come up with the name of your company. If you're going to have a jewelry company, you want to make sure whatever terms you have in the website have terms that'll come back on a Google search. So similarly, if you're going to have a LinkedIn profile, you want to make sure you have terms on that LinkedIn profile that come back in a search. So the headline is very important for that, and make sure yours is not just law student or whatever it might be or non-existent. It's got to be something, but really use that. You see how much information I jammed into there. I don't think there was any more room in there to put there. So have a headline that's relevant because it makes a difference in search results. Your summary, and to an extent also your profile. The summary is located right under the headline. It's before you get into the description, but it's kind of like, you could consider it almost like a cover letter. It should be really something on there that gives a snapshot of who you are, the kind of work you've done, and so they can get an idea. It's your area to really talk about it. So put in some highlights of maybe if you've spoken somewhere, participated in a conference, particular achievements you may have had. It's like, take that as an opportunity, again, to wow somebody when they're searching for you. And that's the summary right under the main information. And then, the profile, again, we're talking about. Use the profile as an opportunity to, tell a story about your work experience, detail your work experience, and make it more than just a resume. Don't just put, I worked here and, this is more than a resume. People make that mistake with LinkedIn. LinkedIn should not be just your online resume. It should really be a place to, tell more about who you are and the kind of things you do. And just as importantly, it should be about interaction. And one thing I want to stress is the things I'm talking about today are important, but none of that should substitute for face-to-face communications with somebody, pounding the pavement, getting out there, meeting people. This should be a precursor, to that, a way to open the door to get to meet a lot of these people. Don't just focus on this and have, think that you can have conversations with someone, through a phone or a computer and that's the end of it. This should be a way in through the door, but it's a great way to get into the door. But again, don't just have listed, and that's what happened a couple times recently when people reached out to me who are law students right now, is all they had was where they worked, and in some cases they were the CEO of like some kind of a startup company, and all they had was that. They didn't have anything about what the company did, and so the first impression I got of them is, I don't know what they really do, and it really, I guess I'm on more the extreme end, but I thought that they're really not taking advantage of this, tech savvy, this great opportunity. So really tell more about yourself and just don't put like the basics of I work here. And again, it goes back to the SEO stuff too. The extent that you can talk about yourself in here and use buzzwords or keywords that in that kind of a field of the kind of things that you might be able to do, because that'll come again on search results if somebody's looking for you. If you work in a certain field and there's a certain term of art, legal term or whatever that you use that in here. Because again, it's kind of like SEO for your profile. So again, recommendations. You can seek out recommendations. Again, no need to have 100 recommendations necessarily on there. It's about quality over quantity if you are going to use that. I will say that there have been ethics opinions lately. I'm actually teaching that now in my class. So, while I'm talking about all this stuff, you should be mindful as well about ethics opinions that have come out lately with regards to what attorneys can do on sites like LinkedIn. And I'm not even saying the side having to do with things like evidence, for example. There was a case that came out where an attorney advised their client to delete photos off Facebook. He got a $540,000 fine and lost his license for 5 years because he told them to basically destroy evidence. So we're not even talking about that, but just in terms of things like profiles, there was an ethics opinion that came out in June of 2013 that said law firms can't list specialty areas, on their LinkedIn company page, because as an attorney, you can't say you're a specialist in an area unless you actually have a certification. So just be mindful of those kinds of ethical rules as well as you're doing this, because it's starting to catch up with social media, and ignorance is not an excuse. So we're lucky in that regard. For example, I think in Florida they say if your law firm is going to send out a tweet, you have to include the address of the law firm in the tweet. How are you going to fit that into 140 characters? And I think there's another state that actually said you can't have recommendations or you can't have endorsements. They actually don't allow it for attorneys. So be mindful of, not to scare you, but be mindful that there are rules there as well, not only for attorneys but for many areas. So be mindful of that side as well. And I'm happy to give those opinions if anyone wants to read them. But so with LinkedIn, with Twitter, with Facebook, any of these things, let's talk about groups, because that kind of underscores one of the important things here, and I think what some people fail to grasp with this. If you're going to be on these websites, don't just create a LinkedIn profile or a Twitter account or whichever one it is and then do nothing, because you will get nothing out of it. I mean, you might get some people back, but the whole point of these things is they say it's called social media for a reason. You have to be social on it. Don't just create an account and just sit back and don't do anything with it. Be active. And I can talk about a number of ways you can be active on these kinds of accounts. But that's the key is, don't just, it's what you put into it. But I'm, living proof. I've gotten, client, calls out of, they saw my LinkedIn profile, they saw my Twitter account, for example. I've had it, the recruiters, by the way. I've had recruiters, find me. That's another, if you want to friend somebody, find some recruiters or headhunters. There's there too. That's what they use, to find people now. It's a whole database of information. So, friend some of those people, and that's nothing wrong with that. So LinkedIn groups is very important, and I saw you've got some groups actually, and so this is the Touro Law Center group profile, which, by the way, the owner is Miss Grennan over there. So if you want to, join, that's the person to go to. But so you got, and then Debbie, you're actually on the over there as well. So so there's 1,085 members in this group. So it's there for you to take advantage of. It's not just sitting for you to join the group and to do absolutely nothing. And whether it's this group, I saw when I looked at this page, on the bottom of this page, there was like 10 or 8 different groups of, Suffolk law jobs. There was like several which just had to do with finding law jobs. So there's groups out there that are devoted to attorneys, and alumni of your school, and of finding jobs. So you should be active in those groups. Join those groups and participate in them. Don't just sit there, but if you find something interesting, maybe an article having to do with the law or law students or career, post the article. If somebody else posts something, respond back. You can meet people and make connections through these kinds of groups. And again, there's so many groups on to take advantage of. I actually love them because for me it's a way to keep up to date with a lot of things, especially developments in a lot of these areas. So, and you meet a lot of people. And I've seen people who just go on these groups and they say, I'm looking for a job. It's how you want to approach it. But they say, I'm a student here, or I have this kind of an experience. Can anybody help me? And there are people who will reach out to you and help you, and I've seen that before. So again, it's there for you to take advantage of. Join groups that are relevant to you, make connections on there, and again, take advantage of that because, again, it's called social media, they say, for a reason. And again, you can do a search. There's jobs that are listed on there. It's not, I don't think, as relevant for law students, versus maybe when you're practicing for a couple years out, but there's a job section in there. And again, there's advanced search tools in LinkedIn where you can search by practice area, by field. I mean, you can really come across, the millions of people who are on there. You can narrow it down in so many ways that when I was a law student, if I wanted to find this kind of information, I would have to go from website to website for the most part. I'm going to talk about the alumni feature on there, which I didn't have. So if I wanted to reach out to Cardozo alumni in 2007 and 8, I had to go to each individual law firm website and do a search by alumni. Now you have that all in a centralized database here. You know, it's an amazing. How many people are familiar with the alumni feature in LinkedIn? Okay, not too many. So you definitely have to familiarize yourself with this one. So let's talk about that. And just an example. So this is the kind of things that I might post. If I write something, I'll just post it, and people will respond and get comments, and you know, their friends might see it if they like it. So I've done that lately and actually had a lot of success with it. You know, make a lot of connections, and people ask me to speak or you know, whatever the case may be. So post. You know, it's don't think of it, you know, as something just to be static. Post relevant stuff in there, whether it's in your group or in this case it's just on my timeline or profile itself within LinkedIn. Because here's the other thing. You do this so that you brand yourself, right? You don't, you know, I've had people reach out to me now as an attorney for legal work because they know the kind of things I do. You know, how do they know in part? It's because I post. You know, you two could probably attest to that. I post a lot. You know, on whether, and Facebook is about, I'm not necessarily talking today about Facebook. And some people think, you know, question whether to the extent you can use it professionally. But for about a good 2 years now, I've posted relevant articles on Facebook even. And I have people who reach out to me through Facebook even because of that. So it's a way to brand yourself, whether you want to do real estate law, bankruptcy law, matrimonial, again, whichever is the case. If you're out there posting these kinds of stuff, eventually people will recognize you as somebody in this field. And so there's a guy out there who practices trademark law. And I've never met the guy. But I know he's the trademark attorney because every couple of days he posts something about trademark, a development in the law, you know, whatever it is, and he's branded himself. And in my, you know, conscience, I know him as the trademark guy. So if I have a question or maybe I want to refer somebody, I might go to him. Now you have to, you know, develop a relationship outside of LinkedIn as well, but use it for branding. And this is a long-term thing, you know. And if you think it doesn't make a difference, I again could be proof positive, you know, to these kinds of things. You know, use it as an opportunity to really brand yourself in an area, and over time, it'll absolutely make a difference. I've had, again, people reach out to me, you know, through these kinds of mediums because of the kind of articles that I've posted. So you're not just necessarily doing it for today, but it could be a couple of weeks, a couple of months, it could be a year or two down the line, and it took a while for me to make traction, but you eventually will. As long as you put good content out there, they say content is king on these things. If you put good content out there, people will eventually see it, and it'll make a difference. It really will. So the alumni feature is what we were talking about before. If you go into your LinkedIn profile, there's one of the top tabs there. It says network, right? If you go down, there's an option that says find alumni. Every one of you should be taking advantage of that alumni feature. So this is one of the searches I just did for Touro, just as a screenshot to show you an example. I think there was something like 4,000 or 5,000 LinkedIn Touro alumni. So you have about 5,000 people that you could reach out to if you want, whether it's for career advice or maybe to find something. And it's just sitting there in a centralized database on LinkedIn for you. By the way, it's not limited to that. You could do it by your undergraduate, because you can change schools over there on the side. So you can do it to any school. But just as your immediate school, you have, and look at the way you can break it down by where they live, where they work, what they do. And so I broke it down in one particular way, and there's 1,000 people on there, right? So again, when I was in law school, I didn't have this option. I had to literally go from website to website, or I had to use like something like Martindale Hubble to find law firms or that. I mean, this is something that's so much more, you know, useful. So the question is, what do you do with something like this? So you have all these connections. Well, you should connect to people if you look at their profile and you think that, you know, what they do is relevant. If you found them on a search, connect with them. And importantly, when you connect with people on LinkedIn or anything else in general, don't just hit connect and so that they get a message back that says this person wants to connect with you. That's a big no-no. You should do a personalized message when you connect with them. And I think it makes a world of difference. And I've had people reach out to me, alumni from my school, from as far as Seattle, and they write thoughtful messages, and it makes me want to actually respond versus some unknown person wants to connect with me that I don't know who it is. So you could say, you know, I'm a law student at Touro. I'm in, you know, my second or third year. I'm interested in this area of the law. I see you practice this. I'd love to speak to you further. You know, you can vary it as you want. And I think the beauty of doing it this way versus email, there's nothing wrong with email or picking up the phone. But as an attorney, and I know many attorneys much more so than me, get 200 emails a day. It's very easy for them to lose your email, and if it's gone, they're not going to go back through 600 emails in 4 days to find wherever your email was. But something like this, they're probably not getting 200 Facebook or LinkedIn messages or connections a day, so it's more likely they'll respond, and it's more likely it won't be lost in the shuffle. Literally, like, there are times where I'm like, I think somebody emailed me, and I have to go back and look through days. But this is something that'll be right there for them. So just in terms of getting access to some of these people, this is something very much more effective, I think, than email. And again, you go in there, and versus a bio or what you might find on the internet, this is something they created, so you can see what they do, what's important to them, and it gives you, great ways to have conversations with them. There's a lot of ways to take advantage of this, so you should absolutely, if you're going to be on LinkedIn as a law student, take advantage of this. Because, again, reach out to people on there. If you get a couple of hits back and you get a couple of things out of it, it could really make a huge difference. And this is a wonderful tool and resource. If nothing else, you should be using this out of there to reach out to alumni. And they want to help. I generally want to help people, from my law school or attorneys in general, if I can. So it's not like, what is the harm in it? The beauty of it is you don't have to pay for any of this. It's completely free. There's LinkedIn Premium, but I don't know that you would necessarily need that. But this is completely free, so it goes back to it's what you put into it. And if you put some time into this and reach out to people, 1,000 people here in this search. So if you reached out to a couple hundred of them, you're telling me that you won't have a result, that something good can't come out of it. So it's really what you put into it. And this is resources and tools that are in place for you to take advantage of that you absolutely should be taking advantage of. Again, Touro's alumni groups, you could, I know I saw a couple of them when I did a search. So see what kind of groups are out there. Connect with people on there as well. Whether you want to connect with them directly or through groups, it's up to you. There is the job search tool on there that you can take advantage of. For attorneys coming out or brand new attorneys, some of those are looking for more levels of experience, but that doesn't mean I haven't seen ones for brand new attorneys as well. So there's that. And again, as I said, connect with recruiters and HR professionals because sometimes they'll connect with you. But it's a great place to meet them. As I said, personalize the connection requests on there. You can ask for an introduction from somebody else if you see you have a third party or second party, first party connection, whatever is the case. And again, establish your authority. So use it as a way to not only on your profile talk about the kind of things that you're interested in doing, but post articles and use it as a way to whether you can use hashtags, for example. People will eventually notice. I've heard of people using blogs, which I'll talk about, but I've heard of people using blogs, law students using blogs to get jobs. So again, even if there isn't an immediate result on this, over time, there definitely will be, because you will have eventually establish yourself as an authority in whatever area you're doing if you're posting about it regularly. And even among your circle of people, they'll come to recognize people don't know necessarily what you do. Even with something like LinkedIn, unless they go to your page or they see the headline in there, which again, if your headline just says you're an associate, that doesn't mean anything. They won't know what you do. But if you're posting stuff like this that constantly comes into their feed, they'll know. And whether it's now, a year, 2 years, 5 years down the line, those could be people that might be your clients. So, again, it's all free. It's what you put into it. So it's something, you should definitely take advantage of. Does anybody have questions about I guess we can do questions later, but does anyone have any immediate questions about LinkedIn and how to use it or what I just talked about? Yeah.
How do you find a recruiter on LinkedIn or Facebook? How do you know they're a recruiter?
Well, sometimes it actually says, recruiter in their headline or job title, but again, there's detailed searches that you can do. So you can do a search by company, right? So there's actually a lot of companies out there because they have company pages. I think the number one use for LinkedIn is research, right? Whether or not it's somebody researching a company researching an individual. So you could do a by company search and it'll say every single one of the company's employees who are on LinkedIn. So, I mean, it's I don't have the search tool up, but if you go into the advanced search, and I don't know if I have that, it's kind of right above like this panel there, but if you look at the advanced search, there's so many categories that you can break down by, where they are, what they do, how how they're connected to you, for example. It's just all sitting out there for you to take advantage of. And again, if nothing else, have a profile that's dynamic and talks about the kind of stuff you do, and the alumni feature, take advantage of. It's in a matter of a couple of days, you could, have a significant impact in terms of reaching out to people. Again, that doesn't mean don't have a template message that you send out to everybody. You should look, but over time, it really, I think, makes a difference. So blogging I want to talk about, because I wouldn't probably be here talking to you. I wouldn't be a law professor at St. John's. I wouldn't do a lot of the things if it wasn't for blogging. I had the wonderful opportunity to blog for Long Island Business News, and I've done that for a little over almost 3 years now. And again, you two probably know because you see me post stuff all the time. And so but because I post those kinds of things, you associate me with the kind of things that I talk about. So again, this is another one. Why blog? So you blog for name recognition, expertise, and client development. And you're in law school now, so again, some of you might question, well, why do I need to do it right now? But I've heard from people. There's a guy out in Seattle who's Kevin O'Keefe is his name. I don't know if any of you heard of him, but he's really prolific in the kind of attorneys using social media. So he's got LexBlog, I think it is. You should actually connect with him because I learned a lot of this stuff from him. He's brilliant, and he's been doing this for like over a decade. And I've heard of stories of law students, again, finding jobs because of blogs. And, because it could be impressive, because think of it for no other reason. When you leave law school, for the most part, you don't have practical experience. You weren't working in a law firm. So how does a law firm, I've seen many situations where a head of a firm asks somebody, who's applying for a certain area or practice area, so what do you know about this area? Well, I took the class, for example. But that doesn't, unless you have clinical experience, it could be a shortcoming. You want more information. But if you can point to certain things like I wrote an article or a blog, and if they find it, that person is really vested in this area and really cares about it and has written about it, it could help make a difference. So I have written and I've had many clients as a result of blogging. As long as you're writing good content, I've had television stuff come because of blogging, and really everything. It's amazing to me, and not just if I write a blog. So I wrote just this past week about social media and restraining orders, and people who violated restraining orders allegedly through Pinterest and Google+. And so every week or every other week is something different, but don't think that it has to be current. If you write good content, I've had people reach out to me because they wrote an article, they read an article, a blog article that I wrote a year and a half ago. Because if you write good content and you put it out on that blog, it doesn't matter if it's tomorrow, in a month, or a year down the line, people will find that. And when you're writing a blog, again, think about it from the SEO perspective. Write about stuff that people are interested. Whenever I write something, I try and think of the title and the words in there. If a client is going to do a Google search, what are they going to look for? Right? They're going to look for, what happens if I do this? So write it from the perspective of somebody who is looking for a potential attorney or legal help. Don't write it for other attorneys, by the way, because people don't want to hear legalese. I do that all the time. I talk in legalese. You want to write it in like a common, straightforward kind of way, but think about what your goals are, your target audience, and what you're going to discuss with something like a blog. Have a plan. So whether or not, again, it's Twitter or to a lesser extent LinkedIn, but blogging, make sure you have a plan. Don't start one of these things and then drop it for 6 months, because the good that you can do with it can also be replaced with bad if you created like a blog or a Twitter account and someone does a search for you and they see that you haven't posted in 8 months. That's what's going to be their first impression of you, is like a completely dilapidated, not ever out of date thing. So think of it from that perspective as well. All these are great tools, but make sure when you're doing these, you're committed to doing them, and you just don't create them and then never touch them again, because that'll follow you around as well on the internet. Again, don't write like a lawyer. So think about hot topics and news, and offer your own analysis on it. As an attorney, when you're an attorney. And again, this thing is the number one career development tool, I would say, for me, is blogging. You don't have to necessarily do this now, but this is something for when you finish as a law student, especially, you should definitely be doing. And if you think that this is just people fresh out of like law school doing this, there are partners, and major firms, in Long Island and in New York City who have blogs, and it's not necessarily on their website because you should always have a separate domain generally for the blog that goes back to the website. But major partners at firms in the city and in Long Island have blogs. There's, I think, a New York divorce blog, which is run by one of the largest firms on Long Island. And all it is has to do with information related to it's business divorce. So it's like, people in partnership disputes, for example. And what's going to happen is when somebody does a search, on the internet for an attorney, if that's how they're going to find their attorney, they're going to say, what do I do if I have a partnership dispute? They're going to find that blog and eventually find that attorney. So, and it's all what you put into it. So it could be tremendous opportunities for you to get clients out of it and get business out of it as your career, develops. But you could do it, straight up. If you started doing that stuff now, before you graduate, you'd have a huge leg up on a lot of people by blogging. So, again, I wouldn't be here if it wasn't for blogging and the opportunities that it gave me. So just think about it and use it to your advantage if you can. It's a great opportunity. This is just one of the things that I talked. It's a LIBN. One of the things I wrote about legally tweeting and 5 legal issues for Twitter users. But again, it's what you make of it. You don't have to. You can talk about whatever area of the law you want, but again, I can't stress that enough. And I'm happy to talk to anyone afterwards if they want about ideas and more about blogging. But it's a great, great, great opportunity. So I'll just talk a little bit about Twitter. And people, might say, what are you talking about? Twitter, for a law student or attorney? You got to be kidding me. But it really is another great way for you to develop a reputation and get clients. I've had people who contacted me for work because they said they were looking for an intellectual property attorney. And if you look in my profile, and again, that's important too when you're making a Twitter account, what you put up there, under your profile, I have hashtag intellectual property in there. And they were looking for an intellectual property attorney, and I came up because I put a hashtag in front of intellectual property. So something as simple as that was a potential client. So there are so many different, and people use it, for searches. I don't remember the number, but I just saw recently an article. You'd be surprised at how much of a tremendous tool Twitter is becoming now for people to do searches in. So, and there's very few people who are in there actually, using it for these kinds of purposes. So that's really something that I was even astounded by. I've made connections again to people in all areas of the country and world, because of interesting content that we post. Somebody posts it again and retweets it. And what I'm seeing now is I know a lot of companies who only put jobs on Twitter. They just put out job postings on Twitter. So I have seen in the last couple of days when I was in advance of being here, if you go on there and do a hashtag of law jobs or legal jobs or whatever it is, you'd be surprised at what you're going to find. There's a lot of stuff out there that you can find instantly that are current positions being offered on Twitter. And some companies have been very successful, but I encourage you, do a Twitter search later. Hopefully not now on your phones, but do a Twitter search later for legal jobs or law jobs and see what you find, and you're going to be very surprised. And take advantage of it, because I guarantee you a lot of people don't know about that. So Twitter, again, is just another way for you to become an authority, as all these things are, among other ways, to brand yourself in whatever area you might be interested in. Be yourself on there. You don't have to necessarily post 24/7 about the law. A lot of people like to post various things, what they had for lunch and, what's going on a particular show or whatever. But again, just be careful what you're posting and exhibit, some level of restraint and realize that, whatever you put out there, anybody can see. But again, post worthwhile content. It's so quick, and you could just do it right off your phone. Right now you have, all the articles that you read maybe in a given day and Above the Law or whatever it is you're reading, articles on. I don't even know if people read Above the Law anymore. That was at least ages ago, back in the late 2000s. But you can retweet out stuff. You can put it on LinkedIn, by the way, too. All those, options are there for you. It's simple as clicking a button, put it out there with a hashtag, and you'll be surprised the kind of connections that you can make back as a result. And really is a great opportunity to interact with people on Twitter, even legal professionals. I'm telling you, there's a whole it's kind of like this, like maybe like Fight Club or something. There's this whole underground thing of like professionals and everything that are out there on these, platforms. And it's not just like law students or brand new people. It is, I'm talking about like partners and really, accomplished people, because they see the value. If they're on there, that should tell you the kind of value that they see in these kinds of platforms to take advantage of them. So again, use Twitter as a way to, to become an authority in whatever area you're interested in. Again, as I mentioned before, it's also a great way, whether you're a member of someone's feed on LinkedIn or Twitter or whatever the particular platform is, for you to stay up to date on the law. So if you're going to be somebody who wants to know what's going on, and so for somebody like me who teaches social media law, there's literally every day there's something that comes out. I'm sure you probably all see stuff constantly that comes out. So it's tremendously hard to keep up to date. But when you're in the right LinkedIn group or Twitter feed, that information comes to you. So it's really a way for you to be like at the forefront and cutting edge of whatever areas of the law that you're practicing. And that's always a good thing, and that's always something you should strive to do. So if nothing else, it's good for that. And again, so I could talk a little bit about Facebook as well. You can post, it's whatever platform you want, and it's again what you want to put into it. And for example, again on Facebook, I've had people reach out to me because of the things I post. So it doesn't mean like overnight you need to start putting 1,000 things out there. This is kind of like a gradual thing. But if you gradually put work into it and effort into it, it'll pay off over time. It's what you want to put into it. And again, I would say all of you should have LinkedIn profiles. Without question, you should have LinkedIn accounts, because if that's where recruiters are and that's where companies are, and you're not on there with some dynamic profile and a way for them to find you, all you're doing is shortchanging yourself. And if that's where like the most research occurs for individuals about law firms and companies and whatever, and you're not on there, you can put two and two together. You're really shortchanging yourself not only for career opportunities, but for potential clients, because that's where people are at the moment. And yeah, so that's what I have to say. It's a great opportunity out there. It's again free for the most part. Everything I told you is free. So it's not like it's all about investing your time into it, and I think that over time it would pay off tremendously. So thank you. Does anybody have any questions? I'm happy to talk afterwards, but if anybody has anything about how to do anything or set up something, by all means. You can connect with me, by the way. So I'm the only Pedram Tabibi out there. So whether it's on Twitter or LinkedIn, I don't even know what other things I might be on, but feel free to connect with me, and I'm happy to speak more. And again, I don't want to understate. You have a great law school here that is doing stuff like taking professional photos because they make a difference. You have all these different platforms. Again, you're on YouTube and Pinterest, and not so much that, but that just goes to show that you have a lot of tech-savvy people here who understand that. So take advantage of career services and the people here. Go ahead and bother Kristen if you want. And they're here for you. It's a resource for you that I wish I had when I was in law school. And it makes a difference. Again, I've heard of people, I said, they found a job through Twitter by tweeting out something. And I heard the last time I spoke, like literally 3 or 4 stories like that. So I heard of a guy who found a job in law school and his current job on LinkedIn as well, because he was posting stuff and someone made a connection. So don't think, there's no reason why that can't happen to you as well. So thank you.